All right, I am here to talk about Movsar Evloev versus Arnold Allen. This is an awesome fight. I kind of wish this one was going 5 rounds as a headliner of a fight night event, but I'll take it as a 3-rounder because we get to see it in a few days. Movsar is 29 years old, 17-0 as a pro, and he's given up 1 inch of height, but he has 2.5 inches of reach over 29-year-old Allen, who is 19-2. Arnold Allen is an amazing fighter. He's got 11 finishes in his 19 wins, 7 by TKO or knockout or injury, and 4 by submission. His best win is the injury, Calvin Cater, so it doesn't really count all that much, although he looked good throughout the 5 minutes or however long it lasted, 6 minutes, let's say. Before that, he knocked out Dan Hooker, or TKO'd him, and he looked phenomenal in that fight. He looked like Vitor Belfort, considering the way he was built and how fast he was throwing those hands. It's his most impressive victory. He otherwise has been much more of a grinder at the UFC level. A lot of decision victories, which is a great look. I mean, Movsar Evloev is all decision victories. But Arnold Allen has prevailed over some good fighters. Sadiq Yusuf, I almost said Yusuf Zalal, but that's his best decision victory, I'd say, on paper in the UFC, although he's also beaten Nick Lentz, Gilbert Melendez, Jordan Rinaldi. He had 2 submission victories in the UFC. Only 4 subs altogether in his career, and 2 of them came through for him in a big way, his submission game, with ninja chokes deep into round 3 in comebacks in both fights pretty much, against Alan Omer and Mads Burnell. I don't know what the official scorecards were going into the 3rd round, but in both cases, I think he was down. And locked up that same choke the same way with the same arm in the same spot. And that's not only good for your career, having something like that in the bag, but particularly in this fight, that's something that could come in handy. A ninja choke against Movsar Evloev, who is expected to have his head driving into your hips throughout most of this fight, if he has his way. Well, I guess he'll rip you to the mat and then do other things. But Arnold Allen, yeah, he's a guy that has a really high ceiling, and this is a very close fight. Despite Movsar Evloev having been defeated, and Arnold Allen suffering 2 defeats. This is a very close fight on paper. Arnold Allen, his 2 defeats were very close fights. Max Holloway and Marcin Rocek, who made it to the Ultimate Fighter. Definitely a good fighter, that guy. The Marcin Rocek fight was in Cage Warriors. It was razor thin. I mean, razor thin. It was razor thin, and then in round 3, Marcin Rocek had top position, scored some good points there, but in the end, he was in an arm triangle choke for like the final minute. Arnold Allen reversed him, got top position, locked up an arm triangle, and rode out the rest of the fight like that. So, really could have gone either way, to say the least. And the Max Holloway fight, he lost a 5-round decision to Max Holloway. On paper, that's forgivable, but when you watch the fight, you see Arnold Allen was the last man standing in that fight. Showed great cardio and a great work rate, being the fresher guy in round 5, although Max knew he was ahead, so there is that. But he also won another round, round 2. I thought Arnold Allen fared well against one of the best ever in any division. And here, he's fighting a guy that he knows what to expect. He knows he's got to expect some wrestling from Movsar Evloev. Movsar Evloev has been a pure point fighter at the UFC level. Not that he hasn't mauled some guys, but he hasn't secured a finish since, I believe, Sergey Morozov in round 3 with a rear naked choke outside the UFC. Morozov, of course, was in the UFC not long ago. A good fighter, just vulnerable. But Movsar, yeah, he's got 7 finishes, 3 by TKO, 4 by submission outside the UFC, and then he's got 10 decisions, the majority of which take place inside the UFC. We've seen him beat some good fighters. Diego Lopez recently, which was a newcomer and blah, 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 but Diego has since done some great things, and he showed enough in that fight itself to be respected as an opponent, really testing Movsar Evloev. That guy, and Movsar showed great submission defense and great grappling overall. But yeah, that was a good win. He beat Dan Ige before that, which is his best win on paper, and that was his best win in the UFC, frankly. His best performance, I'd say. really mauling Dan Ige. Had a good fight with Hakeem Dawodu 2-3 years ago. Hakeem was the last man standing, but he gave up too much positional control to Movsar Evloev throughout, where Movsar won. Nick Lentz somehow took him to a split decision, which he might have even done against Arnold Allen, but Nick Lentz is one of those crafty veterans, really tough and savvy, but Movsar definitely won that fight, dominated it largely. And Mike Grundy, he also beat him by decision. Mike Grundy was able to take him down and take round one from him by out-wrestling him. But Grundy is an excellent wrestler, kind of limited elsewhere, though. And his closest fight is against Enrique Barzola, who's a fucking workhorse. That guy's like one of those workhorse types, just an incredible point fighter with an excellent work rate. And those guys had a really close fight, but Movsar ended up getting the nod in the end. So, Movsar Evloev hasn't been able to secure a finish, but that's no problem here, because he's not expected to finish a guy like Arnold Allen anyway. What he's going to need is to out-wrestle him, take him down more than he gets taken down, and make sure there's a lot of wrestling. And I think Movsar Evloev's going to get it done. Arnold Allen, again, some of those wins, those third-round submissions, he'd been pressured and taken down. The Marcin Rocek fight, even though he very easily could have won that, probably should have. He conceded some control there. I just think Movsar Evloev is a beast of a wrestler. He's not just some one-shot guy. He will just wrestle, chain wrestling as I call it. He'll wrestle for 5 minutes. He'll wrestle for 15 minutes. And non-stop until he gets a takedown. I think he's going to win this fight with wrestling. Wouldn't be surprised if he won a 30-27. But I'm taking him to win. And it's not like Movsar's shown too much vulnerabilities where I expect Arnold Allen to have a clear path to victory over him. I mean, I think Arnold Allen, if he was to win, it would be stuffing takedowns and keeping it on the feet. Kind of plain and simple. But Movsar Evloev is the better wrestler, and I think that's going to dictate this fight. I've bet on him. He's my biggest bet at minus 170. I don't know where his odds are at now. They might have moved, probably did. But yeah, he's the guy that I'm favoring to win. And I think it'll look similar to his other wins. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.